to me, you will always exist because what's the proof of that? I'm right here. I'm right now.
The guy who came up with the idea, his name is Hugh Everett III. He came up with it in 1957. So he introduced the many worlds interpretation that you're talking about, going from timeline to timeline based on the quantum field. Um, there's always, in the quantum level, superposition, where that, you know, it's not in a specific state until you observe it.
Yeah.
Of course, I can't think of the guy's names, but at MIT, they proved, and they won a Nobel Prize for this. They proved that the universe isn't locally real. They proved this back in 2021, and they won a prize. They won a Nobel Prize for this, and they showed that through the superposition that until it's observed, it's just a possibility, and that the whole universe is in the state that it's in because it's being observed from so many different observations. Um, Meaning that consciousness is not emerging out of the universe. The universe is emerging out of consciousness, or at least the current state, the solid state that we experience, right?
Yeah.
And so we've gotten that far. And what's so interesting about that is you said something. You said, um, we cannot prove our own consciousness except for to ourselves. I do believe, though, that we could in the future prove which emerges first, the physical world or the conscious experience. And that we could get to a point where we realize, like, no, the conscious experience is what everything is coming from.
Yeah, that can be
Now,
proven
whether or
right now.
not you're having a conscious experience or I'm having a conscious experience, I
Right.
don't know if that can never be proven. And I agree with you totally on that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to quantum immortality, the only reason why that can't be proven is because you're the only one that can test the theory itself. Now, let's get into the theory. So the theory is that you, when it comes to quantum immortality, can never experience your own death. That is the idea. The idea is that when it's time for you and your consciousness to cease and this body shuts down, it ends, that your consciousness can never know unconsciousness. And so the minute you die in this particular existence, this plane, your consciousness will shift to another timeline in which you survived. Um, there's a lot of, reasons why this particular theory is interesting, but also it has a lot of, critics too, because the idea is that, well, if that happens, when do you actually end this particular existence? Because you don't see anybody getting old, 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 old. I mean, is everybody just going to live forever in this particular perspective? I don't subscribe to that idea. I think that eventually you can shift. Let's say quantum immortality is true. Eventually you get to a point where you shift to a whole nother experience and lose your memories. And the reason why I believe that is because I don't remember anything prior to this particular existence, this particular perspective that I'm having as How Miles right now talking to Sain. I don't have any prior knowledge of my existence before I was born. Some people claim they do. I'm inclined to believe them, right? But
Yeah.
let's say they do, and then I'd like to hear your perspective on this. They would still have those memories from a different perspective, a different existence, a different lifetime, which means that somewhere along the lines, the conscious experience jumped from one perspective to another.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts on the whole idea of that continual existence?
Well, if I agree with it because if energy cannot be created or destroyed, if your spirit can never be created or destroyed, it just continues to evolve. and more becoming of, then yeah, I agree with that. Technically, we don't die because we exist, and once you
Right.
exist, you always exist. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you always, to me, you will always exist because what's the proof of that? I'm right here. I'm right now. Meaning, and on top of that, I've made I do believe that I made a soul contract with every human being that I've interacted with, either now or in the near future. And I do believe that because I believe that we make these soul contracts with souls to come in our lives at certain points in time. I think that I think that there's also a very important reason why we don't remember our origin point.
What's the reason for
I
that?
think
Why do you
that
think
I
we don't
think that
remember that?
spiritual amnesia is a good thing, because
Mm-hmm.
you came to Earth to learn some important lessons, right? You are
Right.
on a specific journey, and you made these agreements, and you might not. I don't think we were meant to know it before we experience until we experience it.